What's up, guys? I'm EJ, and I'm joined by Kendall. Thank you all for checking in on our virtual NBA Draft War Room. This session will be focusing on the Philadelphia 76ers. Kendall, the Sixers had a disappointing end to the season. It ended with a 43-30 record, a ouster in the first round, swept by your Boston Celtics, and the firing of Brett Brown as head coach. Yep, the Celtics hat there. Well, I don't know why you threw it. I know Sixers fans maybe that's why you representing Sixers fans there throwing the hat.
Forgot it was there.
But another troll for Sixers fans. But no, but disappointing. Obviously, end to the season. Brett Brown no longer the head coach. Elton Brand, for whatever reason, still making decisions. So he's going to be in charge of this off season. Right now, they hold picks 21, 34, 36, 49, and 58. When it comes to this offseason, free agents, Alex Burks, who actually came in and played okay for them, he'll be a free agent. Kyle Quinn as well. Glenn Robinson III has a $2 million player option. You got Raul Neto, Norrell Pell, and Ryan Broekhoff as well, all free agents. I don't know how else to emphasize this, Kendall. This team needs shooting. That is a huge issue. I know they do got some guys. Josh Richardson played really well in the playoffs, and Tobias Harris, is a good shooter. But they just need as much floor spacing as possible to help Embiid and Simmons. They didn't have enough of it this season and in the postseason. That's why they're at home. What do you think in terms of team needs and going into this offseason, looking at this draft? I also think scoring off the bench is going to be something that they should look at, and front court athleticism, because when you got Horford and Embiid, you're just too slow and plodding in this NBA. They need to get some athleticism from that 4 or 5 spot as well.
Yeah. Look, I think obviously we're going to assume that Simmons and Embiid, that's their plan to move forward with those guys. Whatever they do, if they could blow it up, then we can't help you, Philly. But
yeah, I'll be honest. I'm team blow it up, but I'm working under. They don't seem to be at all interested in doing that right now. So we got to work with what they have right now.
We'll operate, as in terms of we'll help them. As presently constituted, we're trying to help them, win with Embiid and Simmons, and that's how a lot of the fans want to move. So that makes sense. I think the biggest need is, I think you mentioned, backcourt shot creation and backcourt playmaking, something that they lack. I think they need more guard play and more guard play that with guys that can really get a bucket for themselves. And create buckets for other guys on that team, because they don't have a whole lot of guys. Brett Brown was playing Raul Neto a ton of minutes, which I know irked a lot of Sixers fans, because they don't really have. I mean, they didn't have Ben Simmons obviously, but also they didn't have many playmakers on the roster, and Raul Neto was that best option for them. And as nutty as that sounds, they couldn't really find a better guy than that. They lost T.J. McConnell. I think they tried to replicate the T.J. McConnell impact, but it wasn't going to be the same. So that's the primary thing I think the Sixers are missing, is a guy that can really play. I don't want to say starting point guard, but look, the Sixers, they talked about moving Simmons to the 4. I've always thought that was a good idea. Some people disagree, but if they do look at that point guard position as a position of need, Shake Milton's not the guy. I think we learned that, and so they need to
absolutely not. We learned that clearly.
Yeah, you have to hope that at 21 you can find that guy. And the shooting, you mentioned the shooting. They just need to be able to help space the floor for Simmons and Embiid. Shake Milton was not really a guy. He can make shots, but ideally you want a guy that can be a sniper. So a lot of needs for the Sixers. Not too many that they can address at 21, but you try your best.
Yeah, I mean, you deal with the cards are dealt, and I agree. This is a tough draft, and this is, we talked about it right before we recorded. This is a difficult draft to address shooting in the late first round. It's gonna be, or even the early second round. There's not a lot of guys you just pinpoint and say, okay, he can't do anything else, but I think he can shoot, and I'm gonna take a chance on him. It feels like there's always that guy late in the first round or in the second round. We've seen some guys work out, some guys haven't worked out in that aspect, but this is not really the draft for that. And it's kind of weird considering how 3-point shooting has become such a big part of the NBA game. and it's always been a part of the college game. But this just isn't the year to kind of find that guy. So it's a little bit of a tough spot for the Sixers. But if I'm looking at 21, I think Tyrell Terry needs to be the target for the Sixers because I think he's a perfect fit for Ben Simmons.
Yes.
If you want a point, you need a guy who doesn't necessarily need to have the ball in his hands as a primary ball handler, who can still have a massive impact in his ability to stretch the floor. Then Terry is him and Nesmith are the best shooters in this draft, and Terry fits that mold absolutely. Like I think that you put him right there at the one. You put Richardson out there, obviously Tobias, and then you have Simmons and Embiid as a quote unquote front court. Simmons can still be your pseudo point guard, and I think he still should be. I'm still Team Simmons point guard, but I think that if we're gonna say positionless basketball, quote unquote, the Sixers are like the epitome of positionless basketball. To me, it's just like Ben Simmons is such a unique player because of his strengths and his weaknesses. It's like Simmons is like your lead ball handler, and everyone else just like figure out a role that makes sense for you. And I think Terry, even if he's not a starter per se, I think in those lineups with Simmons and Embiid can bring immense value. And for teams, I think because you have so many good defenders with Simmons and Richardson on the perimeter, you're gonna be able to find a way to hide them defensively, potentially against certain matchups. Simmons or Richardson could pick up the one, depending if that guy's a really, really big time scorer, and maybe Terry's picking up a 2 or 3 man that isn't all that much of a threat offensively. So to me, like if I look at 21, like to me, like I'm not really like he's the guy I'm looking at. I don't know. I'm not saying you don't look at anyone else, of course, because guys may slip, but to me, he's a perfect fit for Philly.
Yeah, I mean, look, I echo those sentiments. I think Tyrell Terry would be an excellent fit in Philadelphia. It actually kind of concerns me as a Celtics fan if that happens, but
concerns me as a Knicks fan. Looking at maybe that 27th pick they got.
Right, and he gives you what Landry Shamet was supposed to give you before you moved them for Tobias Harris and gave Tobias Harris,
Yeah. I mean, Shamet was giving it to him. They just got rid of him.
Yes, exactly, and but then he also gives you that playmaking ability that Shamet lacks. Shamet is a guy that is primarily productive off the ball, but Terry is a guy that they could also make plays for other guys and make guys better, and I think that's what makes him an ideal fit for Philadelphia. Another guy I would look at is Nico Mannion, point guard out of Arizona, who I think, Nico Mannion, a lot of this fit and a lot of this, I think overall his projection at the NBA level is going to depend on how good of a shooter he is. I think he likes to fancy himself as a guy who's a very, very good shooter. The numbers don't always suggest that. Some of the games that you watch the tape and you look at the box score and you say, wow, this guy shot like 2 for 19. I mean, this guy was a shooter.
Yeah, his efficiency level, and he takes a lot of jump shots, but his percentages are not as good as you would like, considering how many shots he takes.
Right. So that is the concern with this fit, but I don't think he is a non-shooter. And I think when you're looking at the Sixers, what they need, and there are a lot of point guards that can go in that 20 to 30 range, really in that 15 to 30 range, honestly. And they have a specific type of point guard that they need, and I don't think it is someone like Kyra Lewis. I don't really know if it's someone like R.J. Hampton. I think R.J. Hampton, if he develops his jump shot, could be an excellent fit, but not right away. I think he's a little raw. So I think they need a guy who's ready to play right away and a guy who can space the floor. I think Nico Mannion is a better shooter than T.J. McConnell was and gives you way more stretch potential than T.J. McConnell. But I think in terms of the point guards available in that range, he's the best playmaker out of all of them. I think Theo Maledon's in that conversation as well, but Maledon is also a guy that I'm not sure how he spaces the floor. So I would look at Nico Mannion as a guy that could certainly play off the ball. He played off the ball quite a bit at Arizona, and is a guy that if he can really lock in on that jump shot would be a great fit. Who are some guys you're looking at possibly later in the first round or in the second round with some of those picks that the Sixers have?
Yeah, so quickly on Mannion, I do feel like he's one of those players that, I didn't love how he was used at Arizona for wins, but I think all of that use off the ball that Miller had him doing will actually benefit him greatly in the NBA. So I don't know what kind of shooter he is, and that's the big question mark. So I'm not as high on Mannion because of that, but he's a guy you could certainly see the fit potentially there in Philly. When we talk about whether it be that pick at 21 or maybe second round, they're picking at number 34. A guy I may, yeah, and 36. A guy I would look at, particularly maybe as a trade down option at 21, because I think there's a chance he goes first round, is Desmond Bane from TCU. I did work on him recently. I really like his game. He's an excellent shooter. Unorthodox release, but what I like about his shot is, one, it goes in. So he's consistent in making it. He makes it with range, deep range, logo range. But the other thing that I think makes me feel a little bit at ease, because you've seen some guys shoot well with a very unorthodox release and then get to the NBA and they can't buy a basket. I think what makes me comfortable with his unorthodox shot is that when he shoots off the dribble, his shot is actually way more smoother. Right. It looks like actually a more normal jump shot, and he makes that also with a high clip. So I'm not concerned that he's not going to be able to make shots in the NBA. So he's a very good.
If you put on Baylor tape and the shots.
Oh yeah, he looked unbelievable.
That was what I think boosted him into a possible first round pick. You're playing on a national stage. That's obviously, at the time was a top 5 team in the country. Desmond Bane really opened a lot of people's eyes, both in the college basketball world, but also in the NBA draft scouting community. I have a little bit of concern with Desmond Bane in terms of his upside and, what kind of, I feel like we've seen guys like him that end up being more of a Morris Almond type, they kind of don't really stick.
Yeah, no, I definitely get Morris Almond vibes for the draft nerds at home. We know a lot of them love Morris Almond. Yeah, do some research. Morris Almond was like a guy who went second round. People thought should have been a lottery pick or late first round. Yeah, he was like a draft nerd, just like superstar. Yeah, and he just did not work out in the NBA. Shout out to Morris Almond though, because I was one of those people. I thought he was gonna be a stud.
Yeah, people thought this guy was gonna be a bucket. He was averaged 20 something in college.
Yeah,
and, they thought, elite shooter, good size, 3-and-D, gonna fit he checks all the boxes. It did not really work out. I also definitely, if you're talking about shooting, that's the other aspect of this that I think I agree the Sixers need late in the draft. And I feel like they need to replace the Bellinelli impact and the J.D. Redick impact, because those guys spaced the floor for them in a way that they didn't really have last year, or this year rather. They tried to approximate it with Alec Burks and with Shake Milton and Batiste Steibel, but none of those guys are great shooters. So that's the concern. Is you're spacing the floor, but you're spacing the floor with average jump shooters.
Yeah, you're spacing the floor with guys who the defense is totally okay with taking a lot of shots from the perimeter.
Right, exactly. Before, you're spacing the floor with Redick, Covington, Bellinelli.
Those are guys you got to run at and cover, and that creates a strain for the defense. The defense is allowing the Shake Miltons and the Alec Burks to get shots. They don't want Covington and Redick to get shots, but it's either that or you get killed by Embiid or Simmons. That's why that team before was built a lot better than the team they have currently. Right.
So I feel like shooting is definitely a need, and I think I agree. It's not a whole lot there aren't a whole lot of guys that present that, but one guy I really like is Sam Merrill out of Utah State. A guy who really emerged. He was great all season, but really got brought into the national lexicon during the Mountain West tournament. And Utah State had a great run in that tournament. Obviously, he had a spectacular tournament altogether, but particularly that championship game against San Diego State. He was hitting some bombs from really deep and was obviously hit the game winner in what ended up being the biggest moment of the college basketball season in March.
Yeah.
Which was a very short-lived March Madness, but that was the moment of the season. I feel like he's a guy that you're talking about, a guy that can score at all 3 levels. Not a great athlete, which is why I think a lot of people are shaky on him, but he can score off the bounce, can play out of pick and roll, can make for other guys, but also spaces the floor at an elite level. He can shoot from all areas of the floor, has deep NBA range. I think he's a guy that could give you, I don't want to say he gives you I think he can give you Tyler Hero gives Miami, which is something that if I were Philly, I'd be, oh yeah, that'd be a great fit for what we need. So I would look at Sam Merrill, and Isaiah Joe from Arkansas is another guy who keeps flopping in and out of whether or not he wants to be in the draft, but assuming he is in the draft, also gives you another jump shooter and big time scorer if that's another guy you want. But to me, I don't think big is really a place to look at. If Elton Brand is making this pick, I mentioned it in the Knicks video, but he'll probably trade up from 21 to like 12 so that he can draft Isaiah Stewart. That's like my long wall son, because the way both from upstate New York and like they play the exact same. So I can certainly see Elton Brand being infatuated with Isaiah Stewart, but assuming Elton Brand isn't
keeps his bias out of the pick.
Right, his personal bias out of it. I think we have a good plan for what the Sixers need. I think it's backcourt help, it's shooting, and they have all the size they need. Like, they don't need another big. That's the last thing they need is another big man to play with Embiid, Simmons, Horford, Harris. It's the backcourt. You can't live with Shake Milton anymore. Like, you may have to, but ideally you want to find somebody that could potentially be an upgrade.
Yeah, you gotta get somebody else in the mix. Like, I'm not saying Shake Milton is not gonna be on the team next year or get any minutes, because whoever comes in is a rookie. But like, you hope that the guy that you draft can take some of those minutes away from
Raul Neto getting minutes.
Right? Yeah, and you don't want Raul Neto. Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
And so Philly lost Trey Burke, who also would have been better than Raul Neto. I think Trey Burke's also kind of a guy that gets his own shot and doesn't really make plays for anyone else. But I think the guy that we picked out for Philadelphia would be excellent options.
I agree. What do you guys think about the options for Philadelphia heading into the NBA draft? Make sure you guys leave a comment. Who do you think the Philadelphia 76ers are target? Do you think they need to go for the point guard? Obviously, I think we all agree they need shooting. What players do you think fit that need? Make sure you leave a comment. Make sure you like this video if you enjoyed. Check out our other videos as well on New Generation Media YouTube channel, our virtual NBA draft room sessions. We've already done the Celtics, we've already done the Knicks, and now we got the Sixers. We're almost through with the Atlantic Division, so make sure you check out all these videos. We'll have plenty of more coming up. Make sure you also check out our podcast on New Generation Podcast Network. You can find that on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, Stitcher, and TuneIn. That's Kendall. I'm EJ. Take it easy, guys. Peace.